Homeowners associations, commonly known as HOAs, are a staple in many community developments across the country. These organizations are designed to maintain property values and uphold a certain standard within neighborhoods. While they often provide benefits like community events and shared amenities, they can also impose strict regulations that dictate how homeowners manage their properties. For many residents, this means adhering to rules about landscaping, exterior paint colors, fencing heights, and even the types of vehicles parked in driveways. Living in an HOA can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it offers a sense of security and uniformity that many people appreciate. On the other hand, it can feel intrusive, especially when regulations encroach on personal preferences and privacy. This conflict became all too real for me when I received a notice from my HOA demanding that I remove my beloved privacy hedges. The hedges were more than just decorative plants. They had become a vital part of my home. Over the years, I meticulously cultivated them to create a lush barrier between my yard and the outside world. They provided not only aesthetic appeal, but also a sense of seclusion that allowed my family and me to enjoy our outdoor space without feeling exposed to prying eyes. For many residents of suburban neighborhoods, privacy is not just a luxury. It's an essential component of comfortable living. When I opened the letter from the my heart sank. The notice outlined several complaints from neighbors about the height and density of my hedges, claiming they obstructed views and did not conform to community standards. It detailed a timeline for compliance, threatening fines if I failed to adhere to their demands. As I read through the letter, feelings of frustration and helplessness washed over me. How could an organization dictate what I could plant in my own yard? The hedges were healthy and well-maintained. They were simply fulfilling their purpose by providing privacy. In that moment, I felt a profound violation of my personal space and autonomy. After investing time and effort into creating a sanctuary for my family, the thought of cutting down those hedges felt like being stripped of my rights as a homeowner. My initial reaction was anger. I wanted to push back against what I perceived as an overreach by the HOA. However, as I weighed my options, I realized that resisting could lead to more significant issues, including fines or even legal action. I spent hours contemplating the situation. Should I stand firm against the HOA's demands? What would happen if I refused to comply? Could I risk losing my home over something as seemingly trivial as some shrubs? The tension between wanting to assert my rights and fearing potential repercussions made it difficult to think clearly. Ultimately, after much deliberation, I decided to comply with the HOA's order. It felt like surrendering, yielding control over my own property, and allowing an external authority to dictate how I managed my yard. In doing so, I hoped to avoid further conflict and maintain peace in our community. However, this compliance came with a heavy heart. It felt like losing a piece of home. The day arrived when I finally had to cut down the hedges. As each branch fell away, it felt like an emotional wound reopening. The loss was tangible. Neighbors walked by with varied reactions. Some offered sympathetic glances while others appeared indifferent or even pleased at the sight of my reduced greenery. The once thriving hedges now lay in disarray on the ground, a stark reminder of what had been lost. In the aftermath of removing my privacy hedges, the change in atmosphere was palpable. Where there had once been seclusion and tranquility, now stood an open view that made me feel exposed and vulnerable. Without those green barriers, it seemed as if anyone passing by could see into our backyard, our sanctuary, and observe our family life. The feeling of invasion grew stronger each day, intensifying my yearning for privacy, a fundamental aspect of home that many take for granted until it's stripped away. Conversations with neighbors became awkward. There was an unspoken tension surrounding the topic of HOAs and their often overbearing rules. As time passed and frustration simmered beneath the surface, inspiration struck unexpectedly. If the HOA wanted me to remove my hedges for being too tall or obstructive, then perhaps I could construct something even bigger, something that would reclaim my privacy in a bold way. What if instead of mere hedges, I built a wall? This idea sparked a fire within me, a desire not only to restore what I'd lost, but also to assert control over my space in defiance of what felt like unjust regulations imposed by the HOA. In that moment, a plan began to form, a plan that would lead me down an unexpected path filled with challenges and triumphs as I transformed from compliant homeowner to someone ready to stand up for their rights in remarkable fashion. Thus began my journey toward building a 12-foot wall, a statement piece that would redefine not only my property, but also how I viewed homeownership within an HOA-governed community. The emotional impact of the HOA's decision to force me to cut down my privacy hedges was profound and far-reaching. What began as a simple notice in the mail quickly morphed into a storm of frustration, confusion, and ultimately, a sense of violation. It felt as though my personal sanctuary, the space where I found comfort and solace, was under attack by an authority that had no regard for my individual needs or feelings. As I processed the HOA's ultimatum, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions. First came anger. How dare they dictate what I could or could not have in my own yard? The hedges were not just plants. They were a symbol of my efforts to create a home where my family could feel safe and secure. They had been meticulously nurtured over the years, serving as a natural barrier against the outside world. The idea that someone sitting behind a desk in an HOA office could decide to strip me of that sense of privacy felt deeply unjust. This anger soon morphed into feelings of helplessness. I found myself grappling with the realization that, as a homeowner, I was subject to the whims of an organization that prioritized uniformity over individuality. The hedge removal decision felt like a personal attack on my autonomy, a reminder that I did not have full control over my own property. It was disheartening to think that my choices were dictated by rules created to maintain an idealized community image, rather than to support the varied lifestyles of its residents. Alongside this helplessness came an overwhelming sense of sadness. The hedges were more than just greenery. They represented countless moments spent with family, barbecues with friends, children playing in the yard, quiet afternoons reading under their shade. Every branch that fell away signified a loss not only of physical privacy, but also of cherished memories tied to those moments. Standing amidst the remnants of the once lush hedge felt like mourning for something irretrievably lost. As I began a process of cutting down the hedges, another wave of emotions hit me: guilt. I felt guilty for allowing myself to be pushed around by the HOA, for not standing up more fiercely against what felt like tyranny. This guilt was compounded by thoughts about how my decision would affect my family and neighbors. Would they think less of me for complying? Would they view me as someone who couldn't take a stand for what was right? In a community where reputation mattered, this fear weighed heavily on me. In stark contrast to these feelings was an unexpected loneliness. Despite being surrounded by neighbors who shared similar living conditions and experiences with the HOA, I felt isolated in my struggle. It seemed no one else had faced such an intrusive demand, or at least no one spoke about it openly. Conversations became strained. I hesitated to share my frustrations for fear of judgment or misunderstanding. Instead, I bottled up my feelings, which only intensified the emotional burden. As days turned into weeks following the removal of my hedges, I found myself spiraling deeper into a state of discontent. Every time I stepped into my backyard, now devoid of privacy, I was reminded not only of what had been lost, but also of the powerlessness I felt against an organization that prioritized conformity over individuality. The absence of those hedges left me feeling exposed, both physically and emotionally. I would sit in silence in my backyard, staring at the open space where once stood my beloved greenery, replaying every detail leading up to that moment: the notice from the HOA, the decision to comply, the actual removal. Each recollection brought fresh waves of hurt and frustration flooding back. Those feelings resonated within me as I grappled with this new reality, living without the very thing that had given me comfort and security. Eventually, this emotional turmoil ignited a spark within me, a desire not just to wallow in sorrow, but to reclaim my sense of agency and control over my life and home. The sadness transformed into determination as I realized that while I couldn't change the past or undo what had been done, I could take charge of my present and future. I began to shift my focus from what had been taken away to what I could build anew in response to this challenge, something bold and unyielding that would declare my need for privacy loud and clear. The idea of erecting a 12-foot wall emerged as both an act of defiance against the HOA's demands and a means to restore what I'd lost, a sanctuary where my family could feel safe once again. The evolution from despair to determination marked a turning point in how I viewed this experience. It wasn't just about losing those hedges anymore. It was about reclaiming power over my environment and redefining what home meant for me and my family moving forward. This journey would be transformative, not only for our property, but also for how we navigated life within an HOA community that sought to impose its will on our personal spaces. With renewed resolve coursing through me, it became clear, while the HOA might have forced me to cut down my privacy hedges, it would not dictate how I chose to live moving forward. Instead, it would inspire me to take action that would restore our sanctuary, one brick at a time. After grappling with the emotional turmoil brought on by the HOA's demands, I found myself at a crossroads. Should I comply with their request and cut down my beloved privacy hedges, or should I stand my ground and resist? The decision weighed heavily on my mind as I considered the potential consequences of each choice. Ultimately, the fear of escalating conflict with the possibility of fines or even legal action nudged me toward compliance. It was a difficult realization to come to, yielding to an organization that seemed so out of touch with the personal needs of its residents. I had always prided myself on being a proactive homeowner, someone who took pride in their property and contributed positively to the community. The idea of being seen as someone who couldn't confront authority felt like an affront to my identity. Yet the stakes felt too high to ignore. I began to weigh my options carefully. Standing up against the HOA could lead to a drawn-out battle, one that might sour relationships with neighbors who might side with the association. Living in an HOA community often comes with unspoken social contracts. You want harmony and neighborly support. Would I jeopardize that by becoming the rebel in the eyes of my community? The thought sent shivers down my spine. As I mulled over these considerations, I reached out to friends and family for their opinions. Their responses were mixed. Some encouraged me to fight back, suggesting that I draft a letter expressing my grievances to the HOA board. Others advised caution, pointing out that maintaining peace within the community was paramount. The conflicting advice only added to my indecision, highlighting just how complex this issue had become. With every passing day, the deadline set by the HOA loomed closer. The notice had given me a finite time frame within which to act, adding pressure to already mounting emotions. The countdown became a constant reminder of my predicament, as each day felt heavier than the last. I spent sleepless nights tossing and turning, imagining all possible outcomes. Some fantastical scenarios where I emerge victorious and others where I face dire consequences for resisting. In those moments of sleeplessness, I also found myself reflecting on what it meant to be part of a community governed by an HOA. Was compliance a betrayal of my values? Or was it simply a pragmatic choice in order to maintain stability in my life? As I weighed these questions against each other, I realized that part of being in a community involves compromise. Perhaps this was one of those moments where compromise meant sacrificing my hedges for the greater good of neighborly relations. The day came when I finally decided to comply. It was a decision made not without internal struggle, but rather from a desire to avoid further conflict and ensure peace within our community. I drafted a response to the HOA acknowledging their request and outlining my intention to remove the hedges promptly. As I hit send on that email, an unexpected wave of relief washed over me. It was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, albeit temporarily. However, that relief was soon overshadowed by sadness as I prepared for what lay ahead, the removal of something that held deep personal significance for me and my family. Each time I'd venture into my backyard during those final days with the hedges intact, I'd take mental snapshots of their beauty, knowing they would soon be gone forever. When the day finally arrived for their removal, it became clear how much energy had built up around this single act. As I stood there watching workers cut down each hedge, feelings of loss surged through me again, intertwining with regret for having agreed to this decision. Each branch that fell echoed in my mind, a tangible representation of what I was willing to sacrifice for compliance. As we cleared away the remnants of what had been taken from us, it became increasingly evident that this was only the beginning, not just in terms of physical change but emotionally too. Though compliance brought temporary peace with the HOA, it also ignited a deep-seated desire within me to reclaim what had been lost and assert control over my personal space once more. This moment marked a turning point. While cutting down those hedges felt like surrendering at first glance, it also planted seeds for something new, a quest for privacy that would lead me down an unexpected path toward building a 12-foot wall. In hindsight, compliance wasn't just about following rules. It turned into an act that fueled my determination to redefine what home meant for me and my family. In relinquishing control over those hedges, I unknowingly set myself on a course toward empowerment, a journey that would challenge me not only as a homeowner, but also as an individual ready to stand up against what felt like unjust encroachment on personal space. What began as an act of compliance transformed into an opportunity for reinvention and resilience, a chance to forge ahead and create something lasting in response to adversity. I learned through this experience that sometimes compliance can lead us down paths we never anticipated, paths that can be filled with frustration, but also promise renewal and reclamation in ways we never thought possible. The struggle between individual rights and community expectations is complex. However, navigating this tension has shaped not only my home, but also my understanding of what it means to truly belong within a community governed by rules yet yearning for individuality. The aftermath of cutting down my privacy hedges hit me like a wave crashing against the shore, sudden and overwhelming. I had anticipated a mix of emotions, but nothing could have prepared me for the profound sense of loss that washed over me once the last branch fell. The removal process itself had been physically taxing, but it was an emotional toll that lingered long after the workers left, leaving behind an open space that felt foreign and exposed. In those early days without the hedges, my backyard transformed from a private oasis into an open field. Where once I had felt cocooned in nature, I now felt vulnerable and exposed to the world beyond my fence. Neighbors walked by with their pets, children played in nearby yards, and I could sense their curious glances directed at my now unshielded space. It was as if a protective layer had been stripped away, leaving me feeling naked in an environment that had once felt secure. Each time I stepped outside, my heart would race as I realized how easily anyone could see into my yard. The joy of relaxing under the sun quickly turned into anxiety about being observed by passers-by. The absence of those lush green barriers served as a constant reminder of what had been taken from me, my sense of privacy and tranquility. I could no longer enjoy quiet moments with my family without feeling the weight of prying eyes watching our every move. As I navigated this newfound exposure, conversations with neighbors became awkward and strained. Those who had previously waved hello or stopped for casual chats now seemed to skirt around our property, perhaps unsure how to address the changes. I wondered if they were judging me for complying with the HOA's demands, or if they simply felt uncomfortable discussing my loss. The very community that had once felt familiar now seemed distant and unwelcoming. Friends and family expressed their sympathy when they heard about the hedges removal, but sympathy only went so far. I found myself longing for solidarity, a fellow homeowner who understood the struggle against HOA regulations and could empathize with the emotional fallout. Instead, I felt isolated in my grief, trapped between compliance and a desire to reclaim my space. In those moments of solitude, I began to reflect on what it meant to truly feel at home. Comfort had always stemmed from both physical space and emotional security, yet now both were in jeopardy. The open view from my backyard also meant an open invitation for others to intrude on what should have been private family moments, barbecues, gatherings, or simple afternoons spent lounging in the sun, all now overshadowed by feelings of vulnerability. Yet amidst this struggle, a simmering determination began to surface within me. It wasn't long before I realized that while I couldn't change what had happened, I could take proactive steps towards restoring my sense of sanctuary. The emotional impact of losing my hedges ignited something within me, a desire not just to wallow in despair, but to channel this frustration into action. As I sat in my yard contemplating next steps, visions of a 12-foot wall began to form in my mind. This would be my bold statement against the encroachment on my personal space, a way to reclaim what had been lost and assert control over my environment once again. The wall would serve as both a physical barrier against prying eyes and a symbol of resilience against the HOA's demands. While construction plans took shape in my mind, it was essential to address not only the physical, but also the emotional scars left behind by the hedge removal. My family began to gather more frequently outdoors. We set up temporary seating arrangements and created makeshift barriers using furniture and plants we still had available. We tried our best to adapt while keeping spirits high amid uncertainty. During this transitional phase, we embraced creativity. Arts and crafts projects sprouted up in our backyard as we sought ways to make it feel inviting again despite its newfound openness. Painting garden stones or creating colorful flower arrangements allowed us to focus on joy rather than dwelling solely on loss. Each new creation became a small victory against vulnerability, a way to reclaim our sense of ownership over this space. As days turned into weeks without hedges, conversations with family members deepened too. We spoke openly about feelings surrounding privacy and security while brainstorming ideas for what our new backyard would eventually become. By discussing our emotions candidly, we fostered a stronger connection within our family unit, one forged through shared experiences of loss and resilience. In essence, this period after cutting down the hedges became a crucible for transformation, not just physically, but emotionally as well. While grief lingered over what once was, it also sparked a renewed passion for creating something greater than before, a sanctuary defined not merely by plants but fortified through determination and purpose. In retrospect, cutting down those hedges catalyzed a journey toward empowerment instead of despair. It forced me to confront not only what it meant to have privacy, but also how essential it is for individuals within communities to advocate for their needs while navigating complex regulations like those imposed by an HOA. Though it was difficult to face this aftermath initially, each step forward brought me closer toward rebuilding not just walls but also trust in myself, and understanding that home can be redefined even amidst loss. As I prepared for the next chapter, the construction of that 12-foot wall, I felt both excitement and resolve building within me. This time around, I would take charge of creating a haven where privacy reigned supreme once more. After the emotional upheaval of cutting down my privacy hedges, I found myself in a state of determination. The absence of those lush green barriers left a void that needed to be filled, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The realization that my backyard was now exposed to the world sparked an idea that began to take root in my mind. What if I built something even more substantial than the hedges? What if I constructed a 12-foot wall? The inspiration for this ambitious project came from a combination of frustration, resilience, and a desire for autonomy. I envisioned this wall not just as a physical structure, but as a powerful statement, a declaration of my right to privacy and personal space. It would serve as a fortress around my home, a visual representation of my refusal to let external pressures dictate how I lived. As I mulled over the idea, I considered the many benefits that such a wall could provide. First and foremost was the privacy it would offer. Unlike the hedges, which had been susceptible to trimming and HOA scrutiny, a well-built wall would stand tall and unwavering against prying eyes. It would create an intimate sanctuary where my family could relax freely without worrying about being observed by passers-by or neighbors. Moreover, this wall would symbolize resilience. In the wake of losing my hedges, it became essential for me to reclaim my sense of control over my environment. Building something so grand would not only restore what had been lost, but also transform it into something stronger and more permanent. It felt like an act of defiance against the HO, an assertion that I was willing to go to great lengths to protect my home and my family's well-being. The idea began to grow more detailed in my mind as I researched various designs and materials for the wall. I wanted it to be aesthetically pleasing while still being functional. Perhaps it could incorporate natural elements, like climbing vines or decorative stonework, that would soften its imposing height and blend harmoniously with the surrounding landscape. This would not only enhance curb appeal, but also signal to neighbors that this wall wasn't merely a barrier, it was an intentional part of our home's character. Additionally, I started sketching out plans that included features like built-in lighting or even small shelves for plants or decorative items. The vision evolved from simply erecting a boundary into creating an inviting space that still maintained privacy. This realization excited me. It wasn't just about blocking out the outside world. It was about crafting a new experience for my family and me. As I finalized my ideas, I also began reaching out to contractors who specialized in building walls. The process of talking with professionals helped solidify my vision even further. They provided insights into materials, design options, and potential challenges I might face along the way. Each conversation fueled my enthusiasm and deepened my resolve. However, as much as I felt driven by inspiration, there were moments of doubt that crept in. Would building such an imposing structure provoke further backlash from the HOA? How would neighbors react to this bold statement? These questions lingered in the back of my mind as I weighed the risks against the rewards. To help ease these concerns, I decided to engage with some neighbors directly about my plans before any construction began. My hope was that fostering open communication would mitigate any misunderstandings or resentment toward what they might perceive as an aggressive move on my part. To my relief, several neighbors expressed their support for enhancing privacy through thoughtful landscaping or structures, indicating that they understood the importance of personal space in our community. This positive feedback reinforced my conviction that building the wall was not only necessary, but also aligned with broader sentiments shared among residents regarding privacy and comfort within our homes. The notion that others were feeling similarly motivated me even more. Perhaps this project could serve as an example of how we could advocate for ourselves while still maintaining community ties. With newfound confidence bolstered by neighborly support, I dove headfirst into preparations for construction. Gathering materials became an exciting quest. Visiting local suppliers allowed me to explore options while envisioning how everything would come together. Each brick or stone selected became a symbol of my commitment to reclaiming not just physical privacy, but emotional autonomy as well. The decision to build this wall represented more than just a reaction to losing my hedges. It became an embodiment of resilience in the face of adversity, a tangible reminder that while setbacks may occur, they can also catalyze transformation. Each step forward in planning brought me closer not only to completing a project, but also redefining what home meant for me and my family. As plans solidified and excitement grew, I realized how far this journey had taken me, from initially feeling defeated by HOA demands to now embracing empowerment through creation. The road ahead might still involve challenges, navigating regulations or facing skepticism from others, but building this 12-foot wall stood as an opportunity not just for privacy, but also as an assertion of identity, a chance to carve out space where we could thrive together as a family. In essence, this upcoming construction represented a turning point in reclaiming agency over our lives within a community framework that often felt restrictive. What started as frustration over compliance transformed into inspiration, a journey toward building something lasting that reflected our values while honoring our right to personal space in every sense possible. With the inspiration for my 12-foot wall firmly established, it was time to shift focus to the planning and design phase. This was a crucial step, not just for constructing a physical barrier, but for ensuring that this new structure would align with my vision of enhancing privacy while also complementing the aesthetics of my home and the surrounding neighborhood. The first step in the planning process involved researching local building codes and HOA regulations. I wanted to avoid any potential conflicts with the HOA that had prompted me to remove my hedges in the first place. After all, I was determined that this wall would not only serve as a personal fortress, but also adhere to whatever guidelines were in place. I meticulously combed through community regulations concerning height restrictions, materials allowed, and any necessary permits I might need to secure before breaking ground. Armed with information about what was permissible, I began sketching out preliminary designs. I envisioned a solid structure that would stand tall and proud, yet I wanted it to have character, something more than just a plain concrete barrier. I considered various materials that would provide both durability and visual appeal. Stone seemed like an ideal choice. It would provide a natural look while also being long-lasting and easy to maintain. Additionally, stone could allow for creativity in texture and color, giving me the flexibility to design something that felt warm and inviting rather than stark or imposing. To add an artistic touch, I explored the possibility of incorporating decorative elements into the design. Perhaps there could be sections of alternating heights or embedded niches for plants or sculptures, features that would soften the wall's presence while simultaneously enhancing its functionality. I imagined hanging flower pots cascading down the sides or climbing vines that would take root along its surface over time, blending nature with structure. As I fleshed out these ideas, I took inspiration from walls I had seen in other neighborhoods, some that featured integrated lighting, creating a warm glow at night, others that included built-in seating areas where families could gather and enjoy their surroundings. These features struck me as ways to transform what could be an imposing barrier into a space that fostered connection and enjoyment. Next, I sought input from family members about the design. Engaging them in the process not only helped refine my ideas, but also allowed everyone to feel included in this significant change to our home's landscape. We discussed how different elements could work together. My children even suggested colorful mural ideas for one side of the wall, a way to express our family's personality while maintaining our privacy. With family feedback in hand, I turned my attention to logistics. How would this wall be constructed? What materials would be needed? A detailed list of supplies began to take shape as I mapped out everything from foundational elements like gravel and concrete to aesthetic touches such as decorative stones or lighting fixtures. I decided to consult professionals early in this phase. Reaching out to contractors who specialized in building walls provided an essential perspective on practical considerations like site preparation and structural integrity. They offered valuable insights regarding drainage issues or potential weather-related challenges that might arise during construction. This collaboration helped me solidify plans while ensuring safety standards were met, which also gave me peace of mind moving forward. After finalizing the design and gathering estimates from various contractors, I prepared for the next steps, obtaining necessary permits and scheduling construction dates. The administrative aspects felt tedious at times, but they were essential for ensuring everything progressed smoothly without further complications from the HOA. A sense of satisfaction washed over me each time a step was completed. The project was becoming real. In discussions with contractors about timelines, we settled on a start date that aligned with favorable weather conditions. Early spring seemed ideal as it would allow for ample time to establish plantings around the wall before summer arrived. With each passing day leading up to construction, excitement bubbled within me. It felt like we were on the brink of creating something transformative. Through this entire planning process, one realization became clear. Building this wall represented much more than merely erecting a physical boundary. It signified resilience in navigating challenges posed by HOA regulations while reclaiming personal space within our home environment. The anticipation grew as I envisioned how this wall would not only restore privacy, but also become a cherished part of our family's story, a testament to overcoming adversity with creativity and determination. By thoughtfully planning every aspect of its design, from materials used to features included, I felt empowered not just as a homeowner, but as an advocate for our family's needs within a community framework often dictated by rules. As construction neared, I found myself filled with hope and anticipation, a mixture of emotions reminding me how far I'd come from feeling defeated by HOA demands. What started as a loss had transformed into an opportunity for growth, a chance to create a sanctuary defined by individuality and purpose. Embracing this journey meant stepping boldly into uncharted territory while honoring both personal desires and community standards, a balancing act grounded in determination that would culminate soon with the arrival of builders ready to bring my vision to life. The excitement of finally constructing our 12-foot wall loomed just ahead, a powerful representation of reclaiming space while asserting our identity within an ever-evolving community landscape. As the day of construction finally arrived, I felt a rush of anticipation mixed with anxiety. This was it, the culmination of months of planning, brainstorming, and dreaming about how to reclaim my privacy and redefine my space. But with excitement also came the reality that construction projects often come with their own set of challenges. I knew I had to be prepared for the unexpected. The morning the contractors arrived, I stood in my backyard, surveying the area where the wall would soon rise. I felt a sense of empowerment as I watched them unload materials and set up their equipment. However, beneath that excitement lurked a tinge of apprehension about what lay ahead. Would everything go according to plan? Or would unforeseen obstacles arise that could derail my vision? The first challenge became apparent almost immediately: the ground conditions. As the team began digging the foundation for the wall, they hit rocky soil that complicated matters significantly. The contractors explained that instead of simply excavating a trench for a solid base, they would need to invest extra time and effort into breaking through the rock. This setback could potentially delay the project and increase costs, two things I had hoped to avoid. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that challenges are a normal part of any significant undertaking. The vision of my completed wall still loomed large in my mind, and I was determined not to let this initial hurdle deter me. After discussing options with a contractor, we agreed on a plan to proceed with breaking up the rock while keeping an eye on costs, a compromise that seemed necessary at this stage. As days rolled on and the foundation took shape, another challenge emerged: weather issues. Just as we finally began making progress on the wall structure, an unexpected rainstorm swept through our area, halting work for several days. Watching from my window as heavy rain cascaded down felt disheartening. It seemed like Mother Nature was testing my resolve even further. Yet amidst these setbacks, there were moments of triumph that reminded me why I had embarked on this journey in the first place. Each day the construction resumed brought me closer to seeing my vision materialize. When they began laying the first stones of the wall, I felt a surge of joy. Every piece placed was a step toward reclaiming my privacy and restoring comfort to my home. During this phase, I made it a point to engage with the workers whenever possible. Their expertise and enthusiasm were infectious. Each time they shared insights or tips about building techniques, I found myself learning more about construction than I ever thought possible. This connection fostered camaraderie between us. It transformed what could have been a sterile process into an exciting collaboration. With each layer added, I could almost envision how the finished product would enhance our backyard space. The wall was taking shape beautifully, a stunning blend of natural stone and thoughtful design elements that aligned perfectly with my original vision. It felt surreal to stand back and see evidence of our hard work materializing before my eyes. However, just when things seemed to be going smoothly again, another challenge arose: neighborhood concerns. One afternoon, while workers were busy placing stones, a couple of neighbors approached me with questions about the wall's height and appearance. They expressed worry over how it might affect their view or light exposure in their yards. This moment reminded me that building something bold comes with social implications, especially in a close-knit community governed by an HOA. While I understood their concerns, I also felt frustrated. After all, this wall was meant to enhance our family's privacy and create an inviting atmosphere in our own yard. I took a deep breath and decided to address their concerns openly rather than defensively. Inviting them into discussions eased tensions. I explained my intentions behind constructing the wall while emphasizing how it would not only provide privacy, but also improve aesthetics within our shared environment. As we talked through various options, like landscaping around the base or incorporating features that could benefit everyone, I noticed their apprehension begin to dissipate. Their supportive responses reminded me that open communication truly is key when navigating community dynamics. Eventually, after weeks filled with challenges and triumphs alike, we reached a significant milestone: completing the wall's structure. Standing before it was an exhilarating experience. It towered majestically at 12 feet high, a testament to all we had overcome together during this journey. Once construction wrapped up, I wasted no time imagining how we could further enhance our new sanctuary with plants climbing along its surface or seating areas nestled beside its sturdy frame. The anticipation built within me as thoughts swirled around ways we could transform this barrier into an inviting extension of our home, a place where family gatherings could thrive without feeling exposed. Reflecting back on those weeks filled with ups and downs made me realize just how valuable this entire experience had been, not just for reclaiming our privacy, but also for fostering resilience in facing obstacles head-on. The challenges encountered helped strengthen not only my determination, but also connections forged within our community during this transformative process. Though building a 12-foot wall proved far from easy, from rocky soil to weather delays, it ultimately became so much more than just bricks and mortar. It was an assertion of identity within an HOA framework striving for conformity amid individual desires for autonomy. In hindsight, every challenge faced along this journey contributed uniquely toward creating something meaningful, a powerful reminder that resilience often leads us toward unexpected triumphs when navigating complexities in life's endeavors. As the final touches were put on my newly constructed 12-foot wall, I was filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. This project had been a labor of love, a response to the HOA's demands that had forced me to cut down my privacy hedges. Now, standing before this imposing structure, I couldn't help but wonder how the HOA and my neighbors would react. Would they appreciate the effort, or would they see it as a challenge to their authority? The first sign of reaction came from the HOA itself. After receiving a notification about my construction plans before work began, I had been ready for scrutiny. The HOA had strict guidelines regarding property modifications, and I knew that my wall would undoubtedly draw attention. A few days after completion, I received an official letter from the board, requesting a meeting to discuss my new addition. Anxiety washed over me as I prepared for this meeting. What would they say? Would they demand that I tear it down? As I walked into the boardroom filled with familiar faces, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. The air was thick with anticipation as board members flipped through their notes and reviewed the photographs I had submitted during the planning phase. To my surprise, the initial tone of their conversation was not one of confrontation, but rather curiosity. They expressed appreciation for the effort put into the design and construction. One member even complimented its aesthetic appeal, noting how well it blended with the surrounding landscape. This unexpected praise eased some tension in the room and opened up a dialogue about privacy concerns faced by residents. However, as discussions progressed, it became clear that there were still reservations among board members regarding the height of the wall. While they acknowledged its visual appeal, some voiced concerns about how it might set a precedent for future constructions within our community. They worried that allowing such a tall structure could lead to an influx of similar projects that might disrupt the neighborhood's overall aesthetic. I took a deep breath and explained my rationale behind constructing the wall, how it was born from my desire for privacy after losing my hedges, and how it served not only our family, but also contributed to enhancing our property's value. The conversation shifted as we discussed potential regulations moving forward, emphasizing that while individual needs should be respected, community standards must also be upheld. After what felt like hours of back-and-forth discussion, we reached an agreement. I would submit a formal request for a variance regarding the wall's height while also committing to landscape around its base to soften its appearance. This compromise felt like a victory. I left the meeting with renewed confidence in advocating for both my family's needs and maintaining open lines of communication with the HOA. With the HOA's response behind me, I turned my attention to how my neighbors would react once they saw the finished wall in all its glory. As construction wrapped up and landscaping plans took shape, flower beds filled with vibrant blooms lining the base, I could sense curiosity brewing among those who passed by. It didn't take long for neighbors to start voicing their thoughts. Some approached me with genuine compliments about how beautiful the wall looked and how nicely it complemented our home. They expressed admiration for its design and functionality. Many seemed relieved that it did not feel like an impenetrable fortress but rather added character to our shared space. However, not all responses were positive. A handful of neighbors voiced concern over potential blockages to light or views due to its height. They wondered if this new barrier would create an unwelcome divide within our community, one that could isolate homes rather than foster connection. Their worries echoed sentiments shared during discussions with the HO earlier. In moments when tensions arose, I made an effort to engage in open dialogue with concerned neighbors. Inviting them into discussions allowed them to voice their feelings while also helping them understand my perspective on privacy and personal space. We brainstormed solutions together, considering options like planting trees or shrubs along their side of the wall as natural barriers or creating shared spaces where families could gather without feeling exposed. Through these conversations, I discovered that many residents shared similar desires for privacy. They appreciated having someone stand up for individual needs within our community framework. As we worked through concerns together, bridges began forming rather than walls between us. Transformative relationships blossomed from what could have been contentious interactions. Ultimately, these reactions from both the HOA and neighbors revealed deep-seated beliefs surrounding community living, a delicate balance between personal autonomy and collective harmony. My journey toward building this 12-foot wall turned out to be more than just about reclaiming privacy. It sparked discussions within our neighborhood about what each resident valued most. While challenges remained regarding setting boundaries and adhering to regulations moving forward, I felt hopeful knowing that open communication paved pathways toward understanding among us all. The experience reminded me that advocacy often requires navigating complex dynamics while fostering connections within our communities, a lesson learned through this transformative chapter in my life. As time passed and neighbors adjusted to this new addition in our midst, something remarkable emerged. Rather than feeling isolated by this towering structure, we found ways to embrace it as part of our shared landscape, an opportunity for fostering deeper connections strengthened by respect for each other's needs and navigating life together within our unique neighborhood context. As I stood before the newly constructed 12-foot wall, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me to this moment. What started as a frustrating confrontation with my HOA over my privacy hedges had transformed into an experience rich with personal growth and deeper understanding of community dynamics. The wall was no longer just a physical structure. It had become a symbol of resilience, advocacy, and connection. The emotional turmoil that ensued after the removal of my hedges had initially left me feeling powerless and isolated. I grappled with feelings of frustration and sadness, wondering how I could navigate an environment governed by strict regulations while still asserting my right to privacy. However, through the process of planning and building the wall, I discovered an inner strength I hadn't fully recognized before. Taking on the challenge of designing and constructing something so significant forced me to confront my fears head-on. I learned to advocate for myself not only to the HOA, but also within my community. Engaging in discussions with neighbors about my plans reinforced the idea that open communication is crucial in any shared living environment. It became evident that many residents shared similar desires for privacy and comfort, highlighting an underlying need for dialogue about individual rights versus community expectations. This realization was transformative. Instead of viewing the HOA as an adversary, I began to see it as part of a larger ecosystem, one where rules are established to maintain harmony but can sometimes overlook individual needs. My experience prompted me to consider how these regulations could be approached differently, opening avenues for constructive conversation rather than conflict. By addressing concerns collaboratively, we were able to find common ground that respected both community standards and personal preferences. The construction of the wall also sparked discussions among neighbors about their own experiences with privacy and space within our community. It felt liberating to share stories and insights, creating bonds that went beyond mere neighborly greetings. Through these interactions, I realized how important it is for us to support one another in navigating challenges that come with living in close proximity. This sense of solidarity transformed what could have been a divisive issue into an opportunity for collective growth. Moreover, building the wall became a catalyst for enhancing not just my own property, but also our neighborhood as a whole. As we discussed landscaping options and design elements that could benefit everyone, I noticed how these conversations fostered a spirit of collaboration rather than competition. Neighbors who once felt disconnected began brainstorming ways to beautify shared spaces, transforming our area into one that reflected our collective values while honoring individual needs. In retrospect, this experience taught me about resilience and adaptability in the face of adversity. The challenges I encountered during construction, whether it was navigating rocky soil or dealing with inclement weather mirrored life's unpredictability. Each hurdle reinforced my determination to see this project through. I learned that setbacks are often opportunities for growth if approached with a positive mindset. As I reflected on these lessons, I recognized how they extended beyond the physical act of building a wall. They were applicable to life itself. Advocacy, communication, and collaboration became key themes that resonated throughout this journey. Embracing these principles allowed me not only to reclaim my privacy, but also to strengthen relationships within our community. The wall stood tall and proud, a testament not only to personal triumph, but also to the importance of fostering understanding among neighbors facing similar struggles. I felt a sense of pride each time I looked at it, knowing that it represented more than just a barrier. It was a bridge connecting individuals through shared experiences. Additionally, I learned valuable lessons about compromise and negotiation during interactions with both the HOA and my neighbors. By being open to feedback and willing to adapt my plans based on communal input, I found ways to create solutions that honored everyone's needs while still achieving my goal, a balance between individuality and conformity within our neighborhood's framework. This journey ultimately illuminated how community dynamics operate on multiple levels, from individual desires intersecting with collective interests to navigating differing perspectives surrounding regulations. It showed me that personal growth often comes hand in hand with embracing ambiguity and finding strength in vulnerability through connection with others. As time passed after the wall's completion, the atmosphere in our neighborhood began shifting positively. Residents engaged more openly about their concerns or desires regarding home improvements or landscaping choices. A newfound sense of camaraderie emerged as we collectively worked toward creating spaces where everyone felt valued, fostering deeper relationships built upon mutual respect rather than division. In summary, what began as an uphill battle against HOA regulations turned into an opportunity for profound personal growth while reshaping community dynamics around issues like privacy and space-sharing needs. Standing before my wall now serves as a reminder. Sometimes adversity can lead us toward unexpected pathways filled with connection, understanding, resilience, and ultimately, a true sense of belonging within our communities. As I reflect on the journey that has unfolded since the HOA forced me to cut down my privacy hedges, I find myself filled with a sense of accomplishment and growth. What initially felt like a setback transformed into an opportunity for empowerment, resilience, and connection within my community. The process of building a 12-foot wall became more than just a physical alteration to my property. It evolved into a powerful statement about personal autonomy and the importance of advocating for one's needs. One of the key takeaways from this experience is the significance of standing up for oneself. When faced with challenges, especially those arising from regulatory bodies like an HOA, it's essential to remember that your voice matters. I learned that advocating for my family's right to privacy was not just about the hedges. It was about asserting our identity within a framework that often prioritizes uniformity over individuality. This realization empowered me to engage with both the HOA and my neighbors in ways that fostered dialogue rather than confrontation. Through this journey, I also discovered the value of open communication. As I navigated discussions with the HOA and reached out to my neighbors, I learned that sharing perspectives leads to better understanding and mutual respect. By voicing concerns and desires openly, we can create an environment where everyone's needs are considered. This experience taught me that while rules and regulations serve a purpose, they should not overshadow individual rights and the importance of community dynamics. The construction of the wall served as a catalyst for fostering connections within our neighborhood. What could have been seen as an isolating act instead became an opportunity for collaboration. By discussing design ideas and landscaping options with neighbors, we found common ground that enabled us to support one another in creating spaces that reflect our shared values. This sense of camaraderie enriched our community, transforming it into a place where residents felt more connected and invested in one another's well-being. Additionally, addressing the challenges that arose during construction reinforced my resilience and adaptability. From dealing with unexpected obstacles like rocky soil and inclement weather to navigating neighborhood concerns, each hurdle taught me valuable lessons about perseverance. Life is rarely linear, setbacks are often part of the journey toward achieving our goals. This understanding helped me cultivate patience and determination while pursuing what truly mattered, reclaiming my family's privacy. Another important takeaway is the idea that transformation often requires compromise. Engaging with both the HOA and my neighbors illuminated how finding solutions involves listening to others' viewpoints while articulating one's own needs. In negotiating certain aspects of the wall's height and aesthetics, I learned that collaboration can lead to outcomes beneficial for all parties involved. This experience emphasized the importance of flexibility in achieving both personal goals and maintaining harmony within a community. Ultimately, this journey underscored the notion that personal growth frequently arises from adversity. The challenges I faced, both internal and external, pushed me out of my comfort zone and prompted me to explore new avenues for expression and advocacy. Standing before my finished wall now serves as a reminder not only of what I achieved, but also of how far I've come in understanding myself as an active participant in shaping our shared environment. As I look ahead, I am filled with hope for further growth, not just for myself, but also within our community as we continue to navigate challenges together. The relationships forged through this experience will remain vital as we face future hurdles or decisions impacting our neighborhood dynamics. By fostering open lines of communication and supporting one another, we can cultivate an environment where diverse voices are valued, encouraging everyone to thrive. In conclusion, what began as a frustrating encounter with an HOA evolved into a transformative journey marked by resilience, advocacy, and connection. Building a 12-foot wall became so much more than simply reclaiming privacy. It represented personal empowerment, fostering deeper relationships within my community, and learning how to navigate complexities with grace. As I reflect on these lessons learned, I encourage others facing similar situations to embrace their voices boldly while remaining open to collaboration and compromise. Together, we can create environments where individuality thrives alongside community standards, a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued in their pursuit of what makes home truly feel like home. This journey has been one of growth, one that has taught me about not only constructing walls but also building bridges between people who share common goals, cultivating spaces where family life flourishes amidst mutual respect for individual needs within vibrant communities. The end.